Hey, this is Pamela Riemenschneider. I'm the retail editor for Blue Book Services, and this is the Produce Reporter Week in Review. And Greg, you had a fantastic column this week about eating garbage.
Oh, yes. This is not food. It's not bacon.
I've heard of so many things that you can do with banana peels, though, and everyone tries to keep telling me that you can do stuff with it. Banana peel jerky, apparently. You can do watermelon rind pickles. Stephanie from the National Watermelon Promotion Board keeps telling us we got to be eating some watermelon rind. I'm not so sure, but what do you have to say about upcycled food?
Well, when I first saw that the PMA town hall was going to be on upcycled food, I had to laugh because that's one of the things that I find hilarious about the food industry is this whole concept of upcycling and basically eating trash. And then the corollary with that is the bugs as protein, insect protein, which is a huge pet peeve of mine. I'm convinced that people telling me to eat bugs are not the ones who are eating bugs. So I will pass on that. But the webinar ended up being, I tried to keep an open mind, and I went into it with an open mind, and it was very instructive. And I think what the produce industry should take out of it is the concept is not something that should be considered competitive. It is very much complementary. And the whole concept of upcycled food is not so much what do we do with fresh produce after it passes its best by date and keep it fresh, because most of the time when it stops being fresh, if you don't do something with it, it is trash and should not be eaten, and all the discard. And this webinar was more about the value added ways that you can do stuff. And the example that one of the speakers gave was it was wilting kale. And this concept is not so much about turning wilting kale into a value item that is still sold fresh, but more turned into something else like kale chips. And then you can charge more for it. And at the same time, you saved what would have gone to a landfill. So the concept is wonderful. And I traded some emails with Max Teplitsky, who is the chief science officer at PMA, who was the moderator. And he agreed that it is definitely not competitive, it's complementary. And the biggest potential for the industry is in products like grape and olive pomace and avocado pits, once you take the poison out of them. Vines, root vines, and so many of these other things that can be turned into something useful and still nutritious after it's past its usefulness to fresh.
Yeah, I really liked the concept of value added rather than, digging stuff out of the trash. I just think of the professor and Marty McFly like feeding banana peels into the DeLorean in Back to the Future. Or at the end of Back to the Future. Yeah, so
Mr. Fusion is what it was called.
Yeah, Mr. Fusion, that's it. So I knew I would get you with the Marty McFly reference.
Yeah, I'm fine with my flying DeLorean eating banana peels, as long as it's not me.
So for you, the idea of upcycling gives you the visual of dumpster diving. But when they were originally calling this whole supply chain was value added surplus product. And that's just getting nowhere in a consumer's mind. They're not getting, I'm saving the world out of this. But when you changed it and rebranded it to upcycled, you're hitting that algorithm for people who are trying to save the world by eating trash, but not really. But you think about all of the great things that have come out of the upcycling movement over the last few years. A lot of it is turning, leftovers from the fruit smoothie process, for example, and selling those to a beer maker to make fruit beer or whatever. There's a whole lot of really great stuff out there. But I really like that, shifting it away from trying to keep it fresh to more of a, how can we use this? Because we know we're going to have a certain amount of this just in perpetuity. You're always going to have kale that goes wrinkly before you can, or gets wilty before you can actually eat it. So.
Well, another one of the speakers talked about it as an energy cycle, and energy and nutrition kind of being the same. And when there's a lot of energy and nutrition that gets thrown away, and so is there a way to collect that and still use it? And the problem with going after the save the world types is there aren't very many of them, but there's a lot more people who hate waste.
Mm-hmm.
That is much broader and much more encompassing, and waste is bad. So you can appeal to a lot of people by doing that and just making it simple. And one of the things that they didn't really get into very heavily, but they mentioned, and that was an example from the meat industry, and that was pink slime, which happened about a decade ago, if you remember that scandal. Basically, there's this material in ground beef called LFTB, I forget the acronym, but it's lean finely textured beef. I think that, and what it is just, it's kind of the trimmings that falls off of ground beef, and they put it back in because it would be wasteful. And apparently the media got a hold of this and convinced consumers how gross it was. The industry kind of had to change away from that. If that happened now, it could have been presented as avoiding food waste and being more efficient. And it is perfectly nutritious. There's nothing wrong with it. And it is still used now. It's not any grosser than ground beef and the whole process anyway, which is kind of gross, and you have to kind of set it aside in order to enjoy meat products. But I don't think that would happen now. I think society, I think we've changed a lot in a decade.
Right. I mean, I think it's lean, finely textured protein was what it was supposed to be. And I'm grossed out by it because I'm grossed out by hot dogs. And I don't eat bologna or hot dogs, but I will eat the heck out of some charcuterie. And it's not too far from some of that stuff. If you read the label of Mexican chorizo, you're going to find out it's lymph nodes and salivary glands apparently is one of the most desired. So if we think about it from that way, we could go from produce, hey, you know what? We're a lot less gross than that. Our trash is way tastier.
just replace your hot dog if you're grossed out by it with a carrot.
Carrot dogs. Hey, carrot dogs. I saw those at HEB. So they have reached the commercial market for Bolthouse. And actually, my younger son had, for his birthday party, he wanted to have a hot dog buffet. And we had a vegetarian with us, and I bought tofu dogs, and they are disgusting. Yeah, you know what's not gross? Carrots made out of hot dogs. Tofu dogs are disgusting. Carrot hot dogs, great.
Carrots are definitely not gross. They're wonderful, but I'm not putting it in a hot dog bun with ketchup. I'm sorry.
But if you want to go with the theme, it works. It works.
I don't want to go with the theme.
Right. What's our next topic? I forgot.
You're calm. Ghost kitchens.
Ghost kitchens, yes. So as we are embarking next week, you get to travel for the first time for business in a while. You get to go to Monterey, California to the PMA Food Service. I'm still a little jealous that I never get to go to PMA Food Service, but I'm on the docket to go to the Organic Produce Summit, so I can't complain too much.
You're the retail editor.
I know, but all the good food is in food service, isn't it?
You just don't have to make it. It's, I don't know, it's not that much better. If you're a good cook, then it's not.
But for food service, one of the huge topics over the last 12 months has been ghost kitchens. And we've been talking back and forth about the viability of ghost kitchens going forward. And it's a huge topic in our cover story for the most recent issue of Produce Blueprints magazine. And one thing to consider about ghost kitchens is that they are a fantastic way for a restaurant concept to expand rapidly with low overhead. But I've been spending, the last 3 or 4 months really digging into ghost kitchens. Ever since my kids convinced me to try one. We tried the Mr. Beast burger, which is based off of a YouTuber. And a YouTuber is, of course, an influencer, brand experience. But our Mr. Beast burger came from some rando, unmarked food truck in a sketchy cell phone parking lot. So if that is the experience for all ghost kitchens, then we have to wonder how this is going to affect in-store dining and the in-store dining experience. It's nobody knows exactly where we're going to go with in-store dining. So I'm sure that this is going to be a hot topic at food service.
One of the questions I've been asked with regards to the ghost kitchen trend is, how do you know how big it is in an area? And that's a question that I'm not sure, either as a professional food coverage person or as a consumer. I don't know. I have no idea how big it is. I suspect I don't know because it's not something that restaurants will really publicize, especially if they're doing delivery, because um, yeah, you have to figure out in my mind, oh, that restaurant's a half an hour away. How can they deliver in 15 minutes for my call? How can that be possible? Well, it's possible because there's a ghost kitchen, and they're not going to tell you that.
It's a very much a man behind the curtain situation.
Right. They shouldn't really tell us that, and I'm okay with that.
Yeah, I mean, as things like DoorDash and whatever, the Uber Eats and all these third-party delivery services are really exploding, it makes so much sense logistically to have basically a commissary where all of these restaurants are either like a little food court of restaurants that the Uber Eats driver or the DoorDash driver just goes through and picks up and then is able to efficiently and cost effectively pick up orders and deliver them so everything tastes great when it shows up, because that's one of the issues that a kitchen specifically made for takeout and delivery has a leg up on a traditional restaurant that is not equipped for huge takeout and delivery business. I mean, just look at what happened with PF Chang's. PF Chang's has launched an entire separate concept from its major restaurants to facilitate even more of these pickups and deliveries. And is it more cost effective to do that to gain more customers? I mean, in this world, so many people have gotten hooked on more accessible takeout that it makes sense. But I was just reading a really great coverage in Bloomberg about it, and they were over in England talking to ghost kitchen proprietors, and they talk about how it's going to affect the high street, which is, like the main drag, basically. And I guess in the US we would call that the main drag. And is this going to hurt restaurants going forward? That's what we need to figure out.
There are restaurants who figured out how to do a good job at takeout and delivery during the pandemic when they weren't allowed to have customers in store. And I know that there are some who have not returned to open dining rooms because they've been doing so well at takeout and delivery, and adding that expense doesn't add to the bottom line. And that makes total sense, and I have no problem with that. And as I joked throughout the pandemic, we're all in it together. No one's in it together. And just my experience is I didn't really miss going to restaurants, to be honest.
I missed hanging out with friends at restaurants.
Yeah, I miss seeing my friends at restaurants, so I saw them in each other's houses and yards. Did I miss restaurant food? I didn't miss it because I got takeout. And I don't mind being in my house. And a lot of people have become a lot more comfortable with their houses and probably don't mind takeout. They like not having to cook, but they're just fine picking it up and bringing it home. And that's not such a bad thing.
And you know what restaurant concept for me has really thrived during the whole pandemic thing and continues to thrive is drive-through. Because I don't really like takeout so much because I don't feel like most dishes are really suited to it. I don't like cold French fries. I don't want to eat a steak takeout. Of course, I don't get takeout steak. But for me, I feel like the drive-through restaurant concepts of the world just were thriving because it's not like you need to stand. I feel like the experience of going to like a Subway or a Thundercloud Subs or something like that, you got to stand there and look at it and have the sandwich person like talk to you back and forth on exactly what you want. I feel like that needs the personal touch rather than checking boxes online, because I never know until I think about it and see it right there in the moment. But this weekend we went to a restaurant that I never go to. We went to IHOP. with some friends after we were at Schlitterbahn. We're like, my goodness, I'm tired and I just want food. And it was the worst experience I've had in decades of going to restaurants because, well, it's understaffed, first of all, but I really feel like I could have just like ordered from an iPad at my table and had the food brought to me, and it would have been way easier to deal with. So I think right now for food service, and this is something we're going to talk about, especially in the weeks after PMA food service, is really just taking a look at what you can live with and what you can live without. And the pandemic taught us what we can live without. And as we go back into restaurants, we're like, yeah, you know what? I don't really think that we need to have waiters. Should it be counter service? Maybe. I don't know.
Depends on the place. And, my personal system with restaurants is I try to get stuff I either don't want to make or I am not as good.
Mm-hmm.
And so that goes to your steak. Like, why would I ever get a takeout steak? I can cook a good steak.
Right.
I can't make my own pizza. It sucks. I've tried it. It sucks. So I get it from the professionals.
Right. I do the same thing where I can't make Italian food. So if I want Italian food, I'll eat that at a restaurant. There's some things like I can't make my own chimichangas. I gotta go to Chili's and have that.
No way. Yeah. Burritos, I can make those.
Yeah.
Chimichanga, no.
Yeah, I think a lot of consumers are
plate with all it burning right on your table. That's what you get in the Mexican restaurant. You can't get that at home.
Well, and then if you're trying to make your own Chinese, it's a million different things cut into tiny little pieces. There's a whole lot of food prep and a whole lot of mess. And there was actually something that I saw about that they should have an entire like recipe blog genre that shows you the mess that it makes in your kitchen to make some of these recipes, because they show you this beautiful photo and they show you like the mise en place, right? They do all the mise en place and show you a picture of it, especially when you do like, Home Chef or Blue Apron or whatever. The recipe card has everything in little bowls. I should show you the behind the scenes of what it looks like to even make a meal kit where the mise en place is done for you. It's a trash heap. There's so much mess. And that's what restaurants bring to consumers.
Produce with Pamela video.
Yeah, you should. I'm gonna get another meal kit. There's a couple out there that have launched. Meal kits are actually thriving right now. I should get another one and show you the trash left behind and the huge mess, even when someone else does all the portioning for you. But until then, that's it for the Produce Reporter Week in Review. Greg's gonna be calling in from California next week.
That'll be nice.
Service. And we will see you again then. If you are not getting the Produce Reporter newsletter, you need to go to producebluebook.com and sign up.